Hi guys!
Xin chào!
So we arrived into Hanoi after a pretty easy flight from Laos and were immediately kind of thrown into the chaos that is Hanoi.
We stayed in a pretty central location in the old quarter, which was bang smack in the middle of all the chaos. Walked downstairs and within 10 steps we're in the middle of people shouting at us to come to their restaurants, taxis in the middle of the road and motorcycles everywhere.
That night we planned to do a walking tour which would take us around the different parts of the old quarter while introducing us also to new foods and the new country we were in.
The next morning we were up early for our 3-hour trek around town. We saw lots of tin makers, shoemakers, silversmiths, all sorts of trades going on in the street, and while we were walking past we booked ourselves into the water puppet theatre.
So water puppets are a traditional way of telling stories. This all started in the rice fields 1,000 years ago and has continued till today. There are traditional marionettes, but instead of being controlled from above, they're controlled from below.
The music was really relaxing, the theatre was fully booked, and the stories that the little puppets told were amazing with the fire and special effects. The lighting was particularly impressive as well.
So Hanoi has a lot to offer, and not just cultural things. It's got a lot of historical things that are really important. So we decided to head to the Ho Chi Minh Museum, which gave us an insight into life in northern Vietnam during the war and previous to that. We also went to his former residence and the Royal Palace Gardens, and also discovered the B-52 Museum, which we actually stumbled upon by accident, but really enjoyed going around and seeing a full-size wreck of a B-52 bomber.
So it was a really interesting start to the history of Vietnam. I certainly learned something, and I recommend it to anyone else who's making a trip to Vietnam to pay it a visit. We booked onto a Ha Long Bay cruise because of course you can't be in northern Vietnam without seeing the UNESCO heritage site.
Our hotel were really friendly and really helped us choose our best package for us. We wanted to avoid the normal tours, we didn't want to catch up with other backpackers, we wanted to have something to enjoy ourselves, and with it being Christmas we thought we deserved it.
So we splashed out a little bit on the tour. We spent 1 night on the boat and 2 nights on a bungalow on an island. The boat itself was just beautiful. We had a 4-hour trip to Ha Long City before catching the boat, where we had a lovely lunch followed by a little bit of sightseeing around Ha Long Bay itself and an afternoon in some kayaks.
The bay is incredible. It's not possible to explain how many islands there are with words, but we were so lucky that the weather changed. Previous weeks have been really rainy. For us, beautiful sunshine, and we really got to see what Ha Long Bay has to offer. And our kayaking experience this time went without any capsizing.
As part of the tour we also got to see the surprising cave, which once you passed the long line of tourists was this huge cave which just kept getting bigger and bigger the further you walked into it. It was beautifully lit up and amazing to hear the history of how it played its role in the Vietnam War too.
It really is called Surprising Cave for a reason, and we really enjoyed our time walking around there. I'd say that it's probably the best cave we've ever seen, so if you get a chance, visit. From here we got another boat which transferred us to our island. Along the way we passed more amazing islands with amazing views, and also discovered fishing villages which float away there in the bay, and people live there their entire lives.
The island we were staying on felt like a castaway island actually, with a small beach and some bungalows. We were only staying with about 10 other people, and the whole time that we spent there was really peaceful and relaxing.
While we were there we could choose a range of things to do, so we decided to go to Cat Bai Island, the largest island in the area, and do a bit of exploration.
We rented motorcycles with a couple of the other guests that were staying there, and we all went up together to discover the national park and stumbled upon Hospital Cave, which is another cave that had been turned into a hospital during the war as well. So after a couple of nights on the island, we made our way back through Ha Long Bay towards Hanoi, but not before having a cookery class on board making fresh spring rolls.
The cruise overall was just amazing. It really gave us a time to relax, enjoy ourselves, and remember that while travelling it is important to just have some time for yourself.
So after a relaxing time we were back on the road again. This time we'd booked an overnight train to Hoi, where we'd wake up on Christmas morning.
Hoi is the ancient capital of Vietnam, so it has a lot of history in its own right. We had 2 days in the city if we were going to stick to our schedule, so it would mean we had a lot to do while we were there, especially seeing the citadel and all the pagodas.
We headed straight out as soon as we'd reached our guest house to the citadel, where the sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. Not many people around actually, so we had most of the place to ourselves, and I have to say as soon as we passed over the gate we were instantly impressed.
It's very similar to the Forbidden City in Beijing. Although a smaller scale, there were fewer people there and also had a lot more that you could actually go in and see. So we really enjoyed it for that reason.
There was loads of information as we were walking around, and with it being restored and unrestored, it made it really interesting to see all of its history. We really recommend it if you're in Hoi, giving it a visit for a couple of hours.
So while we were in Hue, we were planning our way down to Hoi An, and we were looking at ways to do this. Now, motorbikes seem to be the best way to travel in Vietnam, and we thought we should do that as well. However, we didn't want to just jump on a bike and go straight there. So we decided to pick up a bike, rent it, and visit a couple of the other tourist sites to practice on the roads and to get used to how Vietnam drivers drive.
We managed to see a couple of pagodas, go to the tombs of the emperors, and also stop by the beach for a cocktail too. Not a bad way to spend our Boxing Day.
So, comfortable that we knew how to drive and ready to do it, we found a really good company called Motorvina who would take our luggage for us, send it to Hoi An where we were going to stay, and we could drive the whole way there ourselves.
So at 8:30 in the morning, we picked up our bike and started our journey.
Along the way, we passed some beautiful beaches which we stopped at for a brief walk. We went through some amazing mountain passes, the Hoi An Pass in particular, which took us through over the top of the mountain through clouds and everything. It was really, really good and definitely worth it.
If you've seen the Top Gear episode, you'll know what we're talking about. Especially great way to do this is by motorbike. If you were in the bus, you just wouldn't have gotten the same experience. It only takes 3 to 4 hours to get to Hoi An, and passing through the Marble Mountains at the end in Da Nang was just incredible.
So the Marble Mountains are a network of caves which have Hindu and Buddhist relevance. They're really interesting deep caves which have some amazing architecture in them, big statues and incredible stairways. We arrived into Hoi An in the late afternoon, and turning up to our homestay where we were going to spend some time with the family, we found that the doors were locked.
It was a little bit awkward, not too sure what to do, and phone calls weren't answered, so we made our way into town, got some Wi-Fi, and thankfully they only got in touch.
It turned out that they were actually on holiday in England, but their sister was available who would be looking after us.
So all was resolved and we made our way there, got back on the bike, started up the engine, and sure enough we had a flat tyre.
I tried to ring the company to help us out, wasn't sure what to do. They just said, you'll have to push it. They didn't realise that it was about 2 miles and it's a 150 kilo bike, so had to push it obviously and worked up quite a sweat.
It wasn't a great start to Hoi An after what had been an amazing day, but eventually we got there, taxied off to the homestay, and it was just such a beautiful room in a beautiful location that all got forgotten about.
We were so lucky the whole time there, and Nu and her family looked after us so well. We were really grateful and got to spend some really good time with them.
So of course Hoi An's famous for its tailors, and with every other shop offering its services, we hadn't a clue where to start. Thankfully Nu and her family were connected to one of the tailors in town and gave us a motorbike ride in to BB Cloth Shop.
Here the ladies showed us loads of magazines, gave us loads of ideas, and before we knew it we'd bought more stuff than we knew what to do with. I was measured up for suits, coats, jackets, shirts, trousers, you name it, we bought it.
It was really, really crazy. Things got well out of hand, and within half an hour we'd spent money we didn't even know we had. The whole experience must have taken us an hour, but we had a great time and our clothes were going to be ready in just 24 hours time.
Obviously, to recover from making our own clothes and designing our own clothes, we had to do something that would really relax us. So we went around the corner and designed our own shoes.
So I went for some boots with some blue flowery silk and some lovely shoes with some purple flowery silk.
I'm not going to show you mine on the video because I want you to be completely surprised by them, but needless to say, they're shocking. When you're in Hoi An, it really is important to take into account the time for fittings. So even though it takes only 24 hours to make these things, it does take time to adjust them. So we went back the day after to try on these clothes, see how they fit and get some adjustments made.
If you've ordered as many clothes as we did, it does take a little bit of time to sort through all the fittings, so make sure you allow enough time to get it all done.
So after a couple of days of fittings and buying clothes, which sounds horrendous but it really got a bit tedious by the end of it, we decided to escape Hoi An and try to get to Mai Son.
So So by this point Luke had grown really keen on motorbikes, and sure enough the next morning this geared motorbike turned up. It was super powerful and looked a bit like a Harley Davidson.
After a couple of minutes trying to practice using it, I pretty much put the helmet on and said, Chloe, we're going. And we luckily got the whole way there and back without any problem. So my son is widely regarded as a mini Angle Watt. It's unrestored in large parts, with certain parts protected, but it was also heavily affected by bomb damage during the American War in Vietnam.
We had a great half day out walking around there despite the rain from time to time, and we looked forward to our motorbike journey back as well.
Overall, our time in Hoi An was really good and gave us a good time to relax, enjoy ourselves, and again see a new part of Vietnam which was constantly changing the further south we went.
So temperatures were warming up the further south we were going, and it was only going to get hotter still as we took the overnight train to Ho Chi Minh City, where we'll catch you guys next.
Bye guys.
Take care.